Start the meeting and welcome. We have I think today's meeting will be relatively quick because a lot of some of the recommendations we discussed quite thoroughly at the last meeting. We don't have a workshop planned for today, but Andy and I'd like to do a little bit of a roundtable discussion after the meeting, just to start to establish a work plan for, pardon me, for this committee for the next 18 months, really, as of end of November 2026. We will dissolve as the council dissolves. So I'd sort of like to set a work plan looking forward and basically just get input from the people around the table today as to where they think those priorities should be. And in the last week, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos of other Section 41 committees, which is some hours of my life that I'll never get back. The one takeaway which I'd like to share to you when you receive, I think what we have 64 pages at this meeting, is that the Audit and Risk Committee have an agenda of 381 pages, which they work through, which is all like this. So feel blessed that we get to talk about fun things like those.
You can go to the council meeting on Tuesday. That was over 1,000.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's actually indexed, so you can go through and read. You can watch the bits that you're interested in. You have to watch. The Audit and Risk don't index their meetings. So upon that, I'd like to welcome everybody and start the meeting. And in doing so, I'd like to do acknowledgement of country. So the Mid-Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Nandjuri, Nawang, Nangaraku, Nargat, Narrabri and Permanent peoples of the Mid-Murray lands and waters. It is upon their ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates, and the council pays respects to elders past and present and their spiritual beliefs that are of continuing importance to those of First Nations peoples today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important role that First Nations peoples continue to play within the community, and we extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today. So we have apologies from Di, Councillor Jen Davis, Phil Reid, and Mayor Bailey cannot be present today, and Ben Scales cannot be present either because he's otherwise engaged. I think that's all. I haven't missed anybody. And so moving on, item 4, confirmation of minutes. Would somebody like to move that we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of March? Thank you, Kirsty. And somebody to second that. You can't do it.
No.
You hopefully read them.
I think Sean's the only one.
Okay, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Moving on, number 5, declaration of interest. We do want to discuss declaration of interest relative to the. I've just had a bit of a discussion with Andy in terms of that. There's probably a group declaration of interest regarding our item discussing the volunteer reimbursement. That's what I'm looking for travel.
Yeah, so report 7.7, there may be an actual perceived conflict of interest for some members. I've had a look at the composition of the committee. I believe there's currently Kevin, Warren and Andrew are likely to have or receive reimbursement of travel expenses, particularly Kevin if you come down and work on Mayflower.
Yeah.
But Andrew and Warren and all types that are attending in Maritime or more than 4. It's unlikely, but there's still a possibility of some of these, travelling to another port. Di, Phil, Sean, no, Les, no, councillor Jen Davis, Mayor, no, and councillor Kirsty at this point in time.
So can I just ask Carol, are we doing forms or is it just verbal?
You can just do verbal today, that's all right. I can grab a form if you'd like to fill it out.
I think, speaking to, Kirsty earlier, there'll be, maybe this is a question for you, Carol, as well, that the recommendation would likely be changed at this committee because of the composition of the committee and the likelihood. We won't have a quorum if we vote on that today, if the 3 people leave the room. However, if this committee defer to council for make a decision, we can potentially endorse the report and forward it to council for decision due to the perceived or actual conflict of interest of some of our community members. It might be a way of moving it.
Yeah, I think that's a way to get it moving forward, and also considering we had considerable discussion about it at the last meeting, and it would be very good to get it happening within the 25-26 financial year. So, any questions to Andy regarding that?
Yeah, I have a question, just a query. If you declare interest and that's noted, not sure you have to leave the room. You just sit here and don't vote.
Yeah, you can elect to do that.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
so you, in that case, you would still have a quorum. Look, it's a moot point. It's like 1,000 pages or 3 months of looking at.
Well, my comment was if the people leave the room, we will not have a quorum to vote.
Yeah, but you can
But that's, if you're still
declare
in
a
the room, you're not voting.
perceived
Yeah.
conflict, but you elect to stay in the room and not vote.
But we need to find a way of moving it forward to
Yep.
council, so there has to be a recommendation. As some say, that recommendation, no matter what it is, needs to be voted on. Endorsed by this committee. And looking at the people that aren't in the room, there are some perceived or possible conflicts there that I don't know that we'd ever have an actual quorum to determine the matter in our own right.
So you got a suggestion, Carol?
I could have probably asked governance before the meeting, sorry, I didn't realise, it's, yeah, you're right, anyway, I think you're here, because if you'll get you'll never have a quorum. So probably, I guess, the safest way is for a council to sit. But you're right, you can have, but it's up to the individual to declare an interest, like it's, if you go one, because you're actually voting on everybody, not just yourself. So it's, it's one of those areas.
And I think the new conflict of interest is even if you get a gain or you get a loss from it, so those that aren't able to claim for it would be considered that they would be disadvantaged. So it's like, does that mean that they've got like a just?
But that's assuming they claim. And
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's
It's just-
yeah.
there's a word for it, but two
Yeah.
ladies present prevent me from using it.
So Vanessa in today or?
She's remote, I think.
Ah.
She's not in the office.
Do you have concerns, Kevin?
No, just, I mean, personally, I'd just declare a perceived interest and stay in the room. That way, I might not, I won't vote, but I think that being in the room, you've still got a quorum.
Okay.
Even though I, declare that I won't vote.
But if you're in the,
Yeah,
I think you have to, if you're in your seat, you have to vote.
Right, all right.
Yeah.
I'll give them someone else.
So from that, I'm assuming that Kevin, Warren and Andrew, or you 3 are going to declare an interest and vote to stay in the room. That's your choice.
Yep.
Warren?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we'll do for now. 7.7 is our last report. So I ponder the thought as we get to that point.
What are
Vote and run.
What are the disadvantages of just presenting to the report to council as opposed to making it a voted on recommendation?
I think there's no real disadvantage in it if it can't be determined at this level, and looking at the composition, I'm not sure that we will ever have a forum to vote on it. It will have to go straight to council, and I think, you know, if this committee could make that recommendation, we just put to council as it is.
Yeah, so I think I'd be inclined to.
And then if there's a governance issue at that level, we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Just when it comes to that, then that council will declare and walk out.
And Jen Davis would
Yeah.
probably have to do the same, possibly,
Yeah.
but she may never intend to work out of Adam, so she may not have that same level.
So, but at this level, if we err on the side of probity, we're probably better. Okay, then, thank you for that. Moving on, so, we have no deputations. I have to Google what deputations
Do
mean.
we want to go through the process of I'll declare an interest,
Oh, sorry,
or you're not going to worry about that, Andy?
I think we need to follow the meeting protocol.
yeah, so, you probably need to take me through the meeting protocol in that case.
Carol, can I help you on this? The meeting protocol for declaration of interest.
So if you just all declare that you have an interest, the reason, I mean, I'll put it in the minutes.
Yeah.
The reason why, so yes, we can do that, and then when they get to the resolution, if you plan on changing it, well then they won't actually have a conflict, but at this stage they do, so yes, please declare.
So that we will declare, and I will, Warren,
Yeah.
we will declare it.
And
And-
I'll elect to stay in the room.
Okay, as will I. That's so, and it's still okay for me to chair at that point. So, yep. Okay. We have no deputations. So moving forward to 7.1. Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee Terms of Reference. It's quite a bit of this is pursuant to our conversation at the last meeting, of which I was not present for the first 10 minutes of, but I did watch on YouTube to see what happened before I arrived, and I will never arrive late again. Andy, can I hand it to you?
Okay, so the recommendations from this committee for changes to terms of reference have been endorsed by council. That's the important part for this committee. So that involved the reduction of community members numbers by one, and the inclusion of the designated person ashore onto the committee. At the same time, council staff consider the terms of reference to bring it in line with other Section 41 committees and the meeting protocols and a general tidy up of the terms of reference itself. All of those items essentially administrative. A couple of them talk about deciding member and reference to the meeting protocols and things like that. Quorum was clarified, objectives, membership tidied up in accordance with all of that. Does anyone have any questions on?
Actually, I do.
Yeah.
Probably a question to Carol. I left the room at the council meeting when this. So do I declare, because I'm mentioned in this discussion?
This is an information.
Yeah, that's what I thought about when it went to council, but I thought I'd leave the room. So can we just note that I will declare on this, but I'll stay in the room?
Yeah,
Thanks.
Just,
yeah, because you only know.
for no reason other than confuse the idiocy of the whole declaration of interest. Here we are sitting around as a committee, voting on our own terms of reference in terms recommending it to council. That in itself,
And I think we're accepting.
They've already been to council.
They've been to council and they've come back to us. And so the recommendation is that we receive this report. And we also received the revised terms of reference, which just brings us in line with the other Section 41 committees within council.
We're not actually making a decision.
We're not making a decision, we're saying, thanks, guys, we've got.
We're noting,
So,
yeah, we made the decision last time we met to recommend the council to change the tour.
Yeah.
And from that, they've changed it in line with the other elements which are detailed in this report back to us.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
Les.
all right. It's a process. If anybody wants a hard copy of the tour, I've got a few copies here.
Any other questions or comments regarding any terms of reference? In that case, would somebody like to move that we receive them? Kirsty, thanks. And second, Sean, thank you. All those in favour? And carried, thank you. 7.2. Lost. Manham VIC Discovery Centre and vessel uptake. This is so it's not really a new report, but it's a report that we've picked up again that we sort of fell off the radar when we had some staff changes. And it was our plan that Katrina attend the meeting to present it, which unfortunately hasn't happened because of staff issues at the coalface. So, and I'm assuming, Andy, that you're intending that Therese attends the Morgan meetings.
Teresa will,
So Teresa,
will likely Teresa will attend Morgan and Vicky or Katrina will attend here, but it depends who might be available.
yeah, so we'll alternate those officers to present the report. And then can I handle then Andy for you to take questions on that and talk to the report, please?
Yes, certainly. Try to keep this report simple. Apologies that it sort of slipped off the radar. It is important that we get this level of information, how our services at Manham are going. As you can see, the visitor information centre numbers, 17,000 at the time of writing this report, which was the end of March. Full year expectations 22. So we've broken that down for the Discovery Centre. Let's go Mayflower and the Marion. The Marion numbers, there is looking at it, it's not just a straight, calculation. I actually looked at the cruise schedule for the Marion, figured out how many short cruises were taking part, how many transit cruises and other long cruises. Certainly you can't get to 1,000 people on long cruises when you can only take 24 passengers. So a lot of those short cruise days are up in the order of 50 to 75 people per cruise per time. Then once that consideration is taken into account, I genuinely expect that the number will be up in the vicinity of 1,000 people. Volunteer hours in each of the areas, another very important aspect to our operation, that value to community, that, community members embracing our product, having meaningful volunteer experience. As you can see there, clearly the vessels are very high in numbers. The Discovery Centre with the Tuesday group and some of the other aspects as well. Visitor Information Centre, people helping out with guiding and archiving and things, very high. Visitor Centre's on its own there, 1421, the lowest number of volunteers in that section, which we're trying to build up as we are open 7 days a week, 363 days a year. It's a very demanding environment for paid staff as well, without volunteers on a number of days. So just interestingly there, a point worth raising on performance for the Visitor Information Centre. recently topping the state with a 74% conversion rate. That applies to the number of adults who come into the Visitor Information Centre, who were surveyed in February, stated that they would definitely, from the information received, go on to either stay longer, spend more money, or experience more in region than what they'd intended to before they came in. So that's a metric we use across the state to look at performance. Doesn't mean to say next time it won't be down in the 60-odd percentile. The group of volunteers in there were and staff were getting as many surveys filled in as possible. The state average was 49%. And Doc Discovery Centre, we get a lot of positive commentary to the change of style and layout. A lot of people haven't been before. They just still comment on how clean, tidy and easy it is to see. Obviously, we still have some interpretive work to do there. Mayflower continues to be a major achievement for the operation. We have had some mechanical failures, mostly unforeseen, and we're continuing with those. Marion cruise scheduling 25-26 is nearing completion. I'm very keen, and I've spoken to Katrina about that. We look not only for 25-26 but 26-27, and try and dust that off so that I can, with confidence, before we set fees and charges for the financial year, consider the cruise schedule and work out what the costs are going to be for the vessels at that time. So we don't have a delay in fees and charges for the vessels. It's an industry standard to work at least 18 months to 2 years in advance when cruise operations and tour charters and things like that. And there will always be variances to come in, of course. So we attended the Wooden Boat Festival, and it was an excellent turnout. I believe, Warren, you were there. Excellent numbers on the Marion for that weekend as well.
Can I just put in here a little bit? Who actually sees this graph? Is it just us?
You do at the moment.
Does anyone else see it?
I can roll out support information as it's required.
No, I'm just wondering, does the council see these numbers?
Well,
When this goes.
No, well, I know you are
Yeah,
here. No, the only thing that, well, it doesn't concern me, but it's just because you brought Gulver up, it's the capacity of the Marion to take passengers and make money has just been proven out of sight in Gulver. Counting the passengers we actually took down there and coming back, we nearly got 500 passengers. Just on the cruises, we took 450 passengers, which just blows the 1,000 out.
Yeah.
And because I think it was Katrina and Andy's idea about the one Saturday every month. No, we've still got 3 months of that to add on top of this, plus the cruise, the swim. So, I'm not knocking them there, and everyone goes what the cash cow is and blah, blah, blah. But if the Marion's used correctly, she can make a lot of money. And that's where your future.
I've always maintained that, Warren, and look, this table was prepared well before you went to.
Oh, no, I realise that.
It's
good that we've got council members here.
Yeah.
So we can say, well, look, actually, we're going to blow that out there.
Yeah.
If I use this data for other purposes, it's updated as.
Well, I'm not going you, Andy.
It's updated. I think next time we'll have a similar thing in here. You'll see that's probably going to be in the order of 1,500 to 1,800, something like that.
I know the process. I was just
a
little concerned who sees that and go, well, they've got 3 months left and they've got to get 500 people on there.
Yeah.
That was the first thing when I
Oh.
opened the agenda, I went, what?
But that was the case. That was the case.
No, look, I know.
Yeah.
That's the
I
data.
think that people are aware of what's happening,
Yeah.
how it can just change.
And
Yeah,
to
it
me,
can
when I
change
look
like
at that, it's only until the 31st of March. So
Yeah.
it doesn't
It's only for
include
9
all
months,
that
yeah.
extra.
Yeah.
sort of
I
stuff.
mean, because
So,
we've got the Morgan them coming up, as long as we've got enough water in the river. And
We've got enough people on the boat.
Take them somewhere else.
so, I mean, the potential's there to make a lot of money on the boat.
Yeah. And I've always maintained that on paper, at least, our vessels look as though they can make money. Now it's a matter of how we make turn that into reality, because there are things that impact on it, weather conditions, unavailability of crew. You know, we've had to cancel a number of Mayflower cruises this year because we don't have a captain. We haven't got a person. You know, not knocking, you know, commitments and things like that. It's and the nature of the beast of heritage festivals, you're gonna have breakdowns, you're gonna have problems. So yes, we've got to report actuals and we've got to try and, you know, put aspirationally what we want to see or what we think is going to happen at that point in time. You know, more than doubling that was a reasonable expectation, but the Wooden Boat Festival was blown that out of the water.
So through the chair, these volunteer hour figures, where does the Tuesday working bee fit into that? Is that all the hours split up and put into their different categories, or what's the go?
I think the Tuesday group goes under Man and Dock Discovery Centre. I just need to clarify that the only crew members on Marion and Mayflower.
Because looking at the 4,156 hours for Marion for only that limited number of visitors, I would have thought the Tuesday hours were in there.
Oh, that,
I can clarify.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd need to clarify.
that may be realised in the fact that days are a lot longer. You know, if you're working on the Marion, you're working 12 or 14-hour day.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but what they translate a day to, if that makes sense. Whereas your working bees are probably half day,
They're
you know, 5 or 6 hours. So,
Sometimes they got a lot of people there on Tuesday and then.
I mean, we can clarify that. I think it's a great,
I didn't know whether they were split amongst the categories or. And a second point is, if you're planning like into 2027, we look at the possibility of the Marion maybe going upriver twice a year.
I think the more cruises that Marion can do, as in the Gula where it's an event, where you can have a couple of days where you can do your 3 1-hour cruises, just blows your numbers out the window, because that's where your numbers are going to shoot up. It's like Andy said, we only take 25 passengers, 28 passengers max in a Rockford's. Now they pay a lot more money. Yeah, so but it's if you numbers wise, it's these day trips. So when you go to Gulwert or Morgan,
Kind of limited by the number of events that are happening elsewhere, though.
that's the problem.
yeah, I think like Gulwert was a happy accident. And I think it was great for profile of the boats. If it had been the previous weekend, would have been a disaster because it blew its guts out for that whole of the Easter weekend. We had a fine weekend, all the boats would get in and out. I think they calculated, they thought they had 18,000 people through Gulwert over that weekend. So it's sort of perfect. Yeah, so I think reiterating, backing up what Warren's saying, you know, we piggybacked onto a much larger event. So,
Plus you've got your target audience down there that are really interested,
Yeah.
really keen on
Yeah.
on a boat.
No, yeah.
and I think it probably proved it, so it showed us that there, you know, there weren't price sensitivities. Mayflower would have done a lot better. Just there was a wharf problem with Mayflower that we couldn't get people on and off it, so she didn't do as many cruises as she could have because of just the wharf issue.
My question is, about having Marion go up more than twice a year is not about events or anything, it's about a council asset which all the ratepayers own.
Yes.
And it's the same with Canali, once that's operating, well, I believe that should come down here as well. I mean, they are council assets. And the ratepayers should be seeing these assets in their backyard. It's impossible to do it 5 times a year.
No, it's an excellent
But,
point,
you know,
I think, yeah, that's.
It's all doable.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the ratepayers paying.
And
Yeah,
that, I
that's
mean, across the notion of having day trips between Auckland, Manham also follows that through in that you're connecting the Mid-Murray Council and in some way connecting the towns in between.
It's a great idea. Initially I was against these. To me, the magic, but the Marion is the dining, the overnight, the chef, blah, blah, blah. And I go, oh, no, these day trips, they were just, the numbers we got were just stupid. It was the people that can't afford to spend £800, £900 for a 3-day trip. But they can afford, I can't remember what the price was now, and
75 ahead.
yeah, something like that. Well, that's quite affordable, and then they get 5-6 hours experience on the Marion, and people just loved it. They absolutely loved it.
Yeah. We're only really
So that's
limited on those because we have to transfer people back by coach.
Yeah.
So we're sort of limited to
Yeah.
reasonable coach numbers.
I believe already that Blanchetown tomorrow, Blanchetown is sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a coach load of people coming back.
It's really good.
I think in terms of setting the schedules for the next, I think it's great, next 2.5 years. There will be a balance, which will have lots of different things that.
Oh, yeah.
And he's worked out the cost and profitability per class of trip, if you like.
Yeah.
And we probably do need to do some deeper digging to work out, and not just chase the money, but work out, with the multi-day trips, there's a lot more on costs on that, and there's a lot, in terms of, and where does the gross profit line end up? in each of those
But if
trips?
you look into the 27 here and you have these things penciled in, they might not happen because of low water or
Yeah.
other things, faults with the boats, you might have to go on a slip or whatever, but if
And
you've got them penciled in.
It opens us up to international promotion as well,
Mhm.
because we can start going out to steam groups in,
Yeah.
across out of Australia.
And also volunteer awareness, they know what's coming up longer trips. And that's what you're thinking, how much time they might be able to put into the boat or not.
And then there's the upsell as well, which the day trips will often feed to people coming on the day trips.
Yeah.
Because the day trip is sort of the hourly, so
And that's what I was going to ask is the people that were on, that got on the cruises at Goolwa, did we collect data on them so that we can remarket to them for the longer trips?
No.
Okay.
no, they would,
Because
I
they're
don't know if
already,
it's part of the process, but
yeah,
we have
they're
that.
already
have that data.
converted to things, so it might just sort of down that a big ticket item of a couple of days or a week on there. It could be in their thought processes.
Well, on
down the track.
Goolwa on Man to Goolwa,
Yeah.
It is.
We
It's not
had-
that
Yeah.
good.
we had people who came from Melbourne
Yeah.
last year and did Man to Morgan, and they
Right.
came back to cross the
Do
lake.
that, yeah.
So.
So,
um,
yeah, so all those ones that weren't got on at Galway and did those short.
You'd
We
be
had one
surprised at the number of
market
people
and
coming up to us and said, how do we do a trip?
Yeah.
On the Marion. So,
And the other question is
Lots.
the RAA thing that we were doing, have we started that and are we getting any?
Yeah, it has
Interest from
now
that, like, you know,
started.
yeah.
It's a bit clunky, but we've worked through a few of
Right,
those
yeah.
issues. We are getting some bookings from that.
Right,
I don't know the numbers just yet, I'm letting it ride out for a little while.
because there again, the people that were on those short cruises and probably maybe RAA members, and
Yeah.
if they see that in their RAA membership, that might sort of job it, okay.
Yeah.
Sort of all extra.
I really think the steam aspect is having a comeback.
Mm,
Just observing what's going on at Mildura at the moment with the Melbourne and the Rothbury. Melbourne steam powered, the Rothbury's diesel powered. And people are turning their nose, like they brought the Rothbury in after they saw what Adam was doing with the steam. And they were mooring alongside and trying to sell tickets, and people just don't.
yeah.
And now they're,
that's a bit cheeky.
yeah, but now Adam's going down once a fortnight to Wentworth as well, doing a Darling trip. And
He's working it hard,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that with the Marion, but I think we need to consider any
yeah,
avenues that we can.
Yeah.
Ride on that nostalgia.
yeah,
Keeping things moving along.
Yeah.
I had 2 comments that I would like to make. One, to commend the VIC staff. What they do to get passengers on the trips is just, and which comes back from the passengers. They were great. They rang back. They've fitted us in, the amount of effort that's put into actually, from Katrina and Vicky and now Vesna, and Di to get people on is just amazing. Two, it's one of those strange metrics which probably you only use when you write grant submissions, but Volunteering SA in Northern Territory put a dollar value on volunteers of now $49.53 an hour, which totals to $526,305 based on this chart. 205 of that is Marion. The fast useless fact for the day. So, okay. Anything else on?
Yeah, if I may,
Yeah.
through the chair, and I've raised this before 6 or 7 months ago, and I'm talking specifically about the Discovery Centre. And by comparison, if I was to make comment about what happens in Morgan with the various committees, various people giving input, thinking about things, the Marine Operations Group and all that, they provide us with very detailed and important reports which we read, etc., etc. In regards to the Discovery Centre, it's been pulled back post-flood, and it's excellent, and it's doing quite well. But if you look at the people that go through there and its potential to earn money and where it sits in terms of interpretive centres, if I can use that word, in South Australia, its potential is huge. I think we recognise that over past months and years when we've achieved grants, we've achieved assistance from Maritime Museum in terms of planning, etc., which is unfortunately just sitting there. But the point I'm making is all of those other groups in Morgan, with respect to the Canali and Marine Operations Group, provide us with reports. They're thinking about the future, they're planning. The Discovery Centre has huge potential to be one of the better interpretive centres in South Australia. I think we've proven that in the past. We currently have thousands of dollars of technology, which is cutting edge stuff. I'm talking about the Pepper's Ghost material and that sitting in cardboard boxes. And that's nobody's fault. I'm not pointing at anybody. In particular, Andy, your workload's huge, so I don't expect that you have time for this kind of planning. The point I'm making is there used to always be a group of people who were focused there as used to be called the museum committee, bad term, but anyway, a group of people who are thinking and planning, looking under rocks for grants and assistance and stuff like that, to plan and develop that interpretive centre. Now, we've got a report today with a comment in it that the Randell dock is untidy and unsightly. Well, I have a view, just my view, that could be the centrepiece of that whole place. And you can't do it without money. But my point is, there is not a group of people who are sitting, planning, thinking about how do we make that grow? How do we turn it into what it could be? How do we get that technology in its hardware out of the boxes and back, fitting into the centre in an appropriate way that brings forth the original intention of that AV, the Pepper's Ghost stuff. And it did play a big role for a short while, interrupted by flood, I know. But yeah, to labour the point, I think we need to reinstate that group of people, call it Discovery Centre Committee, whatever. It's able to start thinking about where we're going in the future. It's able to put recommendations up to this group to consider, and it fits in with all the other groups that work so hard for their little area of the Heritage Committee's responsibilities. And right now that one sits there gathering dust.
I have a response to that, which I would like to defer to our discussion after the meeting.
Yeah, that's maybe it
Because
fits there.
there's some stuff happening under the radar, and there's a heap of stuff that I committed to doing a year ago, which I have not done. I don't know, Andy, do you wish to respond?
I was going to say Andrew challenged himself.
One person remembers what I promised to do. So,
I agree with this though, but please appreciate and don't take this the wrong way. My life and my staff life becomes death by committee sometimes. We do committee, and there's all different levels of structure and the final committee to council. In Manham particularly, and I'm guilty of this too, you get sucked into the vortex of the boats because they're operational and you can't get out of that vortex. So the museum's secondary, the gallery is third priority, volunteer management comes in there, marketing comes in there and everything else. And, the necessity of, more committees may not be the best way to go, but I definitely think we need a drive for Discovery Centre.
Vortex is a good word.
Yeah. So it is a vortex.
Look, there wouldn't be an establishment that I can think of anywhere that hasn't got a group of thinkers planning and helping to develop that area. It's important, it's a critical area. It could drag as many people to this area as visitors as the Marion and the Mayflower do. Or
I think you find that the same thing does exist in Morgan. The 99% of the attention for the last few years has all been on Canali. We've got Lancia building sitting up there. If it wasn't for Teresa and Rhiannon, council employees, begging and pleading volunteers to keep those doors open, it wouldn't happen. But there's no such committee at the moment to oversee Lancia because the limited people are all Canali.
Yeah. You've got the wharf as well.
That's right.
well, we come back to Andy's word, there's a vortex in Manham too, and it's at the bottom of that vortex is Canali. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
All
I,
over the
I prefer top actually at the moment. Because it's- Les, can I,
Yeah,
I don't want to cut you short, but I'd like, can we defer this conversation to a conclusion of this meeting? Because I think there is some stuff which is more worthy of discussion as opposed to.
yeah, I just want to resolve it. Everything you raised.
I've got a comment.
Oh, so no, go on. No.
It's just, because you've got the volunteer work group on the Tuesday and as people, and that's probably more physical working and sort of stuff in there. There's probably a cohort within that maybe have pulled out because they can't do that physical thing, but it's still got that drive. So maybe they could be the impetus, like they don't try and create something new, but sort of split that up into the working, the hands-on sort of stuff, and then the knowledge and the drive for the maintaining of that history. So maybe within that, we look within.
Can we hold that thought?
Yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Christine. Moving through, so can I ask somebody to move that we receive the 7.2? Kevin, seconds, Les, all in favour, and we're carried. Thank you. Andy, 7.3, Man Operations Group update.
Okay, simply put the minutes of the last Manham Operations Group are attached there. We're still, we didn't have a meeting last month because I was on leave.
I did attend the last unofficial meeting. I was the only one.
Going to say that the opportunity for Operations Group members to meet and discuss items openly without council staff being present was not taken up. Kevin travelled down from Morgan, which from today, and they
all went
did
to
not
the-
have a meeting.
Was cross that one off the question list then.
So unfortunately, so look, I need to really consider how we manage mocks and mock group better. And obviously, I'll talk with Mox further when we meet next month. about what that might look like. As you can see, the action lists are quite comprehensive. Everything gets raised, either gets dealt with at the time, managed by staff, or put on the action list of future actions. I think that's still a good way to go, but we're not getting a lot of input from certain members of that committee, with the exception maybe two, Warren being one of those who's constantly looking for things to put on the agenda. So we need to improve that.
Can I bring some up here?
Yeah.
Because this isn't pointing the finger at anybody or groups or whatever. I think the whole thing is money, put it in the nicest possible way. But I've gone through all this, and let me I'll go straight to my point, really. Find where the hell I've written it. Is the volunteers at Maritime, the working bees, they're right there on a very low, what's the word? Well, volunteer, I've written volunteers becoming disillusioned and frustrated on the lack of progress by the owners of the board, which is City Council. We have, and I've got volunteers coming up to me now, just shrugging the shoulders, shaking their heads and saying, it's just not worth it, you know, because nothing's getting done, and it's just not worth coming back. And why they're saying this, and again, please, no one take this personally. It all comes down to the generators and the loading of wood and the conveyor belt and the repairs to the wharf. It's been like 27 months since the floods, and that conveyor belt is still there on the barge, and we're still waiting to get the repairs done to the wharf before we can start loading wood. And I'm not quite sure how long the generator's been sat in the shed, but what, it's 7 or 8 months? It'll have to be a while.
Yeah, we're probably.
And I know that there's been a lot of volunteers have put their hands up for certain things, and especially the new generator. And suddenly the engineers and the electricians have suddenly gone, oh, this is too big. I don't think we can manage it now. So suddenly, after 7 or 8 months, we ain't got volunteers to do that. But again, not my problem, thankfully, but we don't know how we're going to find the money or whatever. But we're sat there with a Jenny that's desperately needed on Marion, because you know, you all know David Broadbent. It's not often you see David running around. You know, if David's running around, he's worried. Every Rocklands cruise we do, he's running to the galley kitchen, switching, doesn't ask the chef, just go switching things off, because the Jenny's just about to go. You know, it's all the modern equipment these days. So it's just the clock's ticking on that. So we lose the Jenny, we've got no backup. We've got no electricity. We've got no lights, obviously, no toilets, no showers, nothing. This could happen in the middle of a Rockford cruise where people are paying a lot of money. And again, I'm not having to go at people, because I think it all comes down to money, and we just haven't got bloody money to do it. But that could be the consequences of this Jenny. And it's the same way, I think, with Eric, bless him. I think he has come forward with a plan, hasn't he, as a volunteer. But again, Eric's full-time worker, family, you know, whatever. So his time is limited, but he's supposedly, well, not supposedly, he has a plan, and I think he's got to answer a couple of questions.
No, it's all finalised.
It's all finalised, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
So now, but we're still waiting on the bloody wharf now. God knows.
There's progress in that as well. All of these matters will be talked about at Mogs next.
Yeah, well, I know, well, we've talked about it at Mogs for 27 months.
Yeah.
And we're still in it, and I'm not having a go. Honestly,
I know,
I'm not
I know.
having a go.
No,
Because it's a general thing. 27 months. So now we've got literally volunteers are coming up to me and saying, Warren, oh, you're on the Mogs thing, you're on the Heritage Board. Can you find out what's happening? Because they've had a good fun. They're just, and it's not, the general atmosphere is great. I mean, that barbecue the other day, you know, everyone's happy and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you've got great help on Tuesday with the wood, helping us load the wood. But, you know, you've got, well, and we had good numbers because we had a work and health meeting. But we had about 20 blokes. but that's not, doesn't very often happen. And, you've got average age of 60 to 80-year-olds plus loading wood manually, tons and tons of wood onto the boat. And that's been happening for 27 months. People just shaking their heads and saying, what's happening? So not my position to say what's going to happen or whatever. I just want everyone just to be aware that the volunteers are really on the low end.
So they're not feeling supported because these big things aren't, in their eyes at least, not moving forwards.
Well, it's not more quite much. I mean, Andy can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's mostly money. I mean, if we had $20,000 to get a contractor, we could get the Jenny done in a few days.
Well, yeah,
Have you got the
no,
money?
that's one specific issue, Warren, which was introduced by Moggs, that we want to get a new Jenny, and that was handed over to me. Recommended by Moggs what it was, how it's going to be installed and all that sort of stuff. We have people to do it. Got the Jenny sitting in the shed, and we've been asking engineers and that, well, okay, what we need now is, how are you going to do it? So I'll write up all of the risk management stuff. No one is coming to us saying how we can do it. Now I'm hearing that they're saying they can't.
No, they said it's too big a job.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then we have to look at that. I have to go to Rockford's. I'll have to access some more of the funds to pay for that to happen.
That's fine,
Yeah.
but I think the volunteers need to know that, because,
Well, they can't know that until I know.
well, no, that's that, I know that. But I mean, we're at that stage now
Yeah.
that the volunteers, and we've got some excellent engineers and our two electricians, we've got Graham as well as Kevin now.
Yeah.
And they've just looked at the electricity part and gone, oh, Jesus,
I don't know.
they're bloody hell.
So,
It's
so
like
what is the
spaghetti.
issue is because the new generator's three-phase, isn't it?
That's one of the issues. yeah.
And the old one, the wiring was all done single phase. So what is the problem? They don't know where to connect each phase to
I
what
think it's just-
areas?
I just think it's above their pay grade.
Right.
You need someone.
Well, Kevin and Graham came up with an electrical plan. They knew exactly what they were going to do, but then decided it was too big for them to.
Yeah.
So we can outsource that to contractors.
I think that's all. Obviously, we can't, well, you find out yourself, Andy,
Yeah.
but I think, I'm not saying they need a pat on the backside and, everything's right, mate, but people, it's been a long time and people have just gone, oh, enough's enough. And I just want everyone to know this and the council to know it and whatever, because,
I think,
it's at that
yeah,
stage.
I think it's like, there's been so many things in the floods, like
Oh, look, there's lots of
when they
reasons.
did, and I know we're
Absolutely.
27 months on, but trying to get the funding to fix everything
Yeah.
is like, pulling hen's teeth. It's, so where you sort of go, and that's not an excuse, but the level of frustration, not just there, like throughout all
I'm sure it
communities
is,
and
you look at that
it
bridge at
just runs-
Redmark, it's just been
Yeah.
complete.
21st Street.
How much money did that?
Yeah,
cost?
yeah.
Bloody hell.
So it
Yeah.
is, so it's probably supporting the volunteers through that, and just sort of acknowledging that it is a difficult time and that, I mean, we're waiting on a report to come to council about all of our marine assets and maritime assets and stuff like that, so that, we can sort of do a little bit of a direction going forward. So one of the issues with council, I would say, it's slow and the wheels,
Yeah,
the
we
wheels.
realise that.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for people on the outside. It's frustrating for the people on the inside. And we do have a council that cares. It may not seem like it, but
Oh, no,
we're
no,
sort
I
of, we've sort of set things in place to try and further what we're sort of doing, but it's a frustrating space at the moment, and I really understand that. It's sort of.
Yeah, I just wanted, the whole point of this thing is not to have a go at anyone or say, why hasn't it been done or whatever, because I know what questions, I'm at most logs meeting, I know,
Yeah.
and it's like sitting your head against a brick wall. And then you get answers and then people don't follow through because then they realise the job's too big, blah, 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 blah. I just want to just let people know that, volunteers, it's,
Yeah.
I have one question. With Warren, I've yet to experience MOGs. Is the volunteer group that is, or that you're aware of, that are feeling neglected? Because this sounds like it's becoming a volunteer morale problem. Is that group represented within MOGs? Or are we talking a separate group?
what you're saying, adds some of those people in MOBs.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to people.
On the board,
you know,
yes,
who-
yeah.
who are going, I just wish this would happen, I still come here and work every Wednesday. So they're represented within MOGs. So if communication went to MOGs that, okay, this is what things decided, that would filter back through the volunteer group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Um,
About eight out of the 11 or 12 people that go regularly are Tuesday.
Yeah.
Working group.
Okay, and then the only other comment I would make is in terms of, something that we're building the business of. If we lost a generator in an evening, like we did with cold room the other night,
Yeah.
we would have to move passengers who use CPAP machines, because at the moment cabins are distributed relative to
If you lose
passengers.
your
CPAP units.
generator, your machines ain't gonna work.
So it's more critical.
You've got no power.
Mm.
You've got, the only two things that'll work is your bloody main engine, thank God, and your steering. Because one's steering and one's direct steering. Everything else.
Yeah.
You've lost.
Andy, do you need anything
Handles that.
more from this group in terms of that conversation?
There's progress, very slow progress in each of the areas that I mentioned. Unfortunately, as hard as what I try to push those things, it comes down to, well, it's not so much the money, it's who's going to be able to deal with that.
Have you ever,
I think we need battery backup systems on our boats.
have you ever got a quote for an outside entity to put the generator?
Because it's the first I'm hearing it. It's not, our electricians told us they didn't want to do the job. But I still need to know what the engineers are planning to do to get it in. Now I know that they're not planning to do that either. I can now start to think of other ways of getting a generator.
The trouble is that people just trying to do the right thing and help and whatever,
Appreciate that.
and then
Yeah.
suddenly they realise, oh,
Yeah. But it's,
maybe this is a
but
bit
it's
too
the
much.
same people who up front said, yeah, buy the generator because we can do all the other work. That have factored my thinking around now.
Yeah.
We need to rethink that.
Lovely.
It seems like no matter what the situation, it's got to a critical point in terms of operating the Marion full stop.
Yeah.
That it needs
I
to be
agree.
expedited, however.
On the on the night cruises, when you
Well,
have,
Even in the daytime, you're losing toilets.
yeah, but it's manageable in the daytime because you're not using the electrical equipment in the galley.
No,
So your microwaves and all, in the dishwashers, just little things like that can just flip you. You can just watch the lights go. And Dave will come running in.
And there's a slightly comical ugly loop in the failure is on the cruise with the lack of a generator not being fitted that the sponsor who was on the cruise is on, and they bought us the generator 9 months earlier. That's a bit of an embarrassing one.
But it has come out of the crate.
Yeah, I saw it the other day. I thought, God, I looked at it the other day when I walked past, I thought, no, that's a generator. Wow, how would anybody, that is really big. So,
I think we need a dual level, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also the build
Yeah,
price.
I just wanted
It's things like that. It should be
realise
viewed
that
as critical as the engine.
volunteers
It's a
get
lot more than microwave.
Yeah,
the other thing that occurs to me is that the volunteers, so on crew level, I don't know about MOGs level yet, we celebrate success. And we know you can see people in their heads do the sums of the sort of money that was put through the books in over the Wooden Boat Festival. Now, we don't want and cannot have budget control by committee, or certainly not by group, but it kills morale if they see the money coming in. But they hear, whether correct or not, that there's no money to do stuff, because it just perpetuates the council is sucking all the money out of these boats scenario. Okay,
That's a good point.
can we keep moving? So,
so we just accept
yeah,
that.
can I on that. 7.3, can would somebody like to move, we received that report?
Yeah.
Warren,
Do it the
and
other way
second,
around.
Kevin, yep. And all in favour? Carried, thank you. 7.4. Andy again.
I get sick of mine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Better than the physical.
That's why it's good to have a staff member to do one of them. So
Port of Morgan report.
I delivered Teresa's report very, very simply. It's very similar in structure to what it's always been there for us. All parts of the business are going reasonably well and within expectation. Visitor stats are still up. Interestingly, a little brochure room at the wharf said 9,500 people just wandering in and out of there. Now, we've got no way of valuing that, but you know, they go in, they get clicked by the door counter, come out, we halve the number, and they're just people that go through. So
Is there a fee for that, Simon?
no, there's no fee. No fee. They, you know, it's a great location. It's a great location.
absolutely.
People wander around, they go in and go out. I don't really want to take and we refill the brochures and things like that. So some of the stuff is going out. So, you know, it's a solid little operation. It's extremely complex to run with two staff or one point something staff members out there across 3 different sites. So there's one area that we'll be looking at within the sustainability review. When Ben and I get the opportunity to delve into that one.
It'd be good to have the volunteer numbers like we've got in the manual, because that really highlights the importance of the volunteers and like all of these things. Without our volunteers,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be doing more things that we're doing. So it's sort of like, it sort of says that it remains consistent, but I think having that and having it next to all the things that we do is really, it is sort of crucial information, but also then sort of way of validating back to the volunteers that they are an important part of the cog in the whole machine.
You can feed that back to.
Yeah.
Teresa.
I've got
Another line in.
a couple of minor comments on the Morgan one.
Mhm.
We're getting continual people coming in, wanting to buy tickets to go on Canal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll come up in 7.5, Kim.
And
That's a good read.
another
How
quick
far in
one,
advance can we sell them?
Yeah.
another quick one, couple of our volunteers, Scott and Sue, purchased the shop next door to the Terminus Hotel for their daughter. They've turned it into a sweet shop, like lolly shop.
Yes.
Old fashioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With, you know, coffee, Golden North ice cream in the tubs. And then they made the princess, or Sealy rang them up and said, well, we're gonna drop 300 people on your doorstep, can you handle that? But then there was no water to get the princess there. But, no, it's good to see new ventures in the town.
And the second one attracts, but
Yeah.
the point of critical mass.
Yeah.
And that's just, that little street front's aching for that.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the street needs more than two pubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
3 months.
And I think even because the old fashioned value of like steam and museums
Yeah.
and that, and then the old fashioned, as I was saying, old
yeah,
fashioned
yeah.
lolly shop ice cream, that they sort of, there's a natural synergy.
Yeah, when you walk in, it's all modern,
Yeah, yeah.
but they sell all the old lollies and.
Do they manufacture it?
I believe they do. Yeah, a lot of cakes and stuff like that, but next time you're up there,
No, we should look, well, we're quite keen, but we can look to getting that sort of stuff onto our boats as well.
Oh, yeah.
So. Anything else on 7.4? Just again, just thanks to Teresa, because she goes through so much. It's lovely with the various detail that she goes through for this. So
I like the pictures. It feels to me, if we could do the minimum with the graphs as well.
I think that would probably cause Katrina to leave off the
Well, I
wall.
think you
Yeah.
Sorry, the vortex doesn't allow us. to have that detail.
That would be-
It's
You
not
could,
automatically
you
work.
could break that one to Katrina perhaps.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Can I, no, I was saying councillor McGregor's might want to.
Okay.
Can I have somebody to move, that report is 7.4 is, well, do we have Kirsten?
Yeah, we do. That's
And,
really
and
good.
Carrie,
Yeah.
sorry, we got three. So, Sean, seconded, Kirsty moved. Thank you, Les, we'll keep you for the next one. And I'm assuming we carry, let's move to 7.5, please, and talk all things Canelli.
All right, so Kevin attends these meetings as well as myself, so Kevin might talk me through it a little bit of
Kevin
this.
would like to deliver the report, book the report.
Yeah, it's, we had, I suppose everybody's aware of all the trips we did with Canelli up to the slipway and back. A very long 16-hour days of 40-degree heat. But we all survived to do it again the next day. But then we run 2 crew training days. Warren came up for one. Plus a couple of other captains, Peter Thomas as well. But we've still got mechanical issues that the whole thing needs to be assessed. We're just having trouble getting engineer to commit to having a look at what the issues are. The whole crank shaft needs to be aligned. Even though it's been supposedly aligned 2 times before. But anyway.
What seems like the supporting structure is not strong enough to hold the alignment from.
It's definitely overstrong.
Right.
Yeah, it's just
not sitting in the right spot.
something's not right somewhere.
But that's contradictory to what is in the correspondence from Kevin.
Yeah.
That says strengthening is required, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can have,
That's an opinion of one of the 4 engineers we've had
Yeah.
involved. We've all got different opinions. So we're trying-
yeah.
Where we're at now is we're trying to get an agreement on the priorities of the work that needs to be done for Canali and have that costed so that Ben can sign off on a strategy to get the boat on the water and continue with this survey requirements. At the moment, we're unable to spend any more money until we know what we're up for in major mechanical stuff.
Until we can find out the exact problem, we're chasing a tail.
Yeah.
We're going round and round in circles. And
But sorry, Kevin.
I've arranged for an independent engineer who owns a business in Waikerie. He's come on board as a volunteer. Like he's not knocking on the door trying to make money. He wants to be a volunteer. And I've had to explain to him that we don't expect him to come in and work for free. If he finds the problem and there's a cost associated with it, well, you know, you can understand what I mean.
But by the same token, if he's offering.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
I think, in fairness to everyone, this is the point I was going to make before. These issues could only be identified when the vessel has been operating. So up until, recently when we transited away from Manham back to Morgan, we started to identify some of these issues. Going to Berry and back and on the training trips, they've either got a bit better with tweaking or a bit worse. And we're at a position now where the temporary permit that we had from AMSA to operate has expired. So we're not going back out on the water until we need to test things, but we need to clarify for the benefit of council and ratepayers exactly how much more is needed. And then where are we going to find that money from? How are we going to get hold of that money?
So there's,
Yeah,
there's still no consensus on the problem to
Uh,
then be able to decide an engineering course of action by the sound of it.
not at this point, like when we did the trip from Morgan to Berry. We got up just above Loxton and we identified, one of the bearers on one side decided, to come loose and, you're out in the middle of the river and, what do you do? So we got on, where Casel's Landing is. We gave them a quick ring, called in there and borrowed a welder. The other part was luckily my son was on board and he's a Boilermaker welder. So he welded up all the problem and on we went again. I mean, and that was all free,
I mean, there's a difference between a breakdown and an engineering
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. But then the whole thing ran perfectly.
Right.
We went to Berry. Gus Munro was the engineer coming back, and other than doing his normal routine of oiling, he had a nice cruisy job. He sat on a chair. And it was faultless all the way back from Berry. And then we took it out on the crew training days. First day was perfect. The second day it just knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked. It's an alignment problem with the bearing somewhere.
You're right.
is there a time frame on the um, on the costings for? So as I read it from an outsider at the moment, a CEO's frozen funding, which I think is
Yep.
fair and reasonable in terms of responsibility of both the council and the
The
committee.
time frame for that was.
No, is there a time frame? And sorry, the CEO's frozen funding until such time as there is a definite figure on
Yeah.
additional funding required. Is there a time frame?
Yeah,
There's no course of action yet.
about 3 weeks ago, I would say.
Yeah, it was aimed, the committee did a lot of work on this while I was on leave, and it was the aim that by everybody, that should be pretty well completed by the time we come back. Unfortunately, the contractors that we need haven't committed to being part of the process of providing numbers. It's another side issue for the contractor as well. Yeah, the timeframe is really, it's gonna get done before we're gonna be allowed to finish.
Yeah,
Right.
think it's
And that's,
fair and reasonable.
that's not
Yeah.
where anyone involved with the canal want to be. Everyone involved with the canal wants to see this project finished.
Yeah.
We're always gonna have breakdowns, Sean. We really are. It's the nature of the beast of what we're doing. It's a matter of, let's get it to a point where we can send it out safely and comfortably for the benefit of the crew and the passengers and start to bring some revenue back in. In fact, the revenue is not even the issue. Yeah, it's now
Operation.
getting people to commit, contractors particularly, because a lot of this work we can't do with volunteers.
No.
We could actually operate it as it is now.
Yeah.
It just knocks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were just doing 1 hour cruises out of Morgan, it wouldn't be an issue, but, if you were to put the pressure on of, say, another 16-hour day, I think that's when you're gonna run into issues.
Well, it's got to be sorted out because the
Yeah.
boat's not ready. I mean, take away the engine problem, the work that's got to be done around the decks and accommodation for the passengers. There's nowhere near it.
All of that work is still ongoing. There's been
Yeah,
commitment to it and labour spray and sundry materials. But that will get to a point where that's done, but this other side isn't quite finished yet. To Kevin's point, we may very well decide, well, let's have a look at our pre-schedule, we'll finish off the survey. We'll get it out on the water for 1 hour cruises out of Morgan instead of 1 day a fortnight, maybe it's 1 day a month. We gotta start the process somewhere. But at this stage, we're just a little bit of a very complicated quandary because let's be honest, I'm not an engineer. And the technical terms and jargon that gets thrown at me by different engineers, conflicting stuff is very confusing. I have to rely on them to sit down with me at some stage, and go, this is what it's gonna cost.
And get them to agree.
Yeah, so it seems like we need
Well,
to be
we've
either
got-
choosing one engineer's
We've got to
decision
choose one.
or
This is
have.
why Kevin's brought in an independent,
Yeah, somebody with brand new eyes,
with my
Lovely.
blessing.
and luckily he's a volunteer.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
And
the-
we've got another person with probably lifetime experience as a engineer on all ocean going boats. He was on the boat for 3 days on one of the legs and he's offered to come in. I don't know if you know David Dunk. Yeah, he's offered to come in as an independent to any of the contractors. So,
So is that happening? or-
yeah, probably on the 15th of June.
Can the boat be operated at all, like for testing and diagnosis
Not till we get
purposes?
another permit.
Right. Can it be rolled over whilst tied to the wall?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do on the 15th. The Marion will actually be there on that day. And,
So it can be steamed and operated as
Some
long
water.
as it doesn't leave.
yeah, yeah,
Or-
yeah. Yeah, we can have the engines turning on. You know, just might be a little pressure on the ropes, but. Yeah.
I have two other questions. I think the funding for the Living River grant from SATC, what's the time?
We've had that extended for 12 months.
Months, I guess. And the current 32,431, which is in the budget, that's the,
Budget line.
oh, sorry, oh, let's get to it when we go to budgets, that's right. And what else, is there anything else that is required from this committee at this point to assist you guys moving this forward?
Other than funds, which till we find out what the issue is, I personally totally agree with the CEO. You can't just keep
No.
handing it out. Gets to the point where you need to find what the problem is, then fix the problem.
And what's the word up and down the river? What are they saying in the front bars?
Yeah.
How's this affecting our image?
Well, I don't think I will make that comment because we're actually on live video.
Well, let's talk about that after. Okay. Any other comments or?
It's probably a moot point, but just see, because some of the canal is not moving too
Yeah.
far. But the Leonard Loxton Wakery Council,
Oh, yeah,
more,
yeah.
what's sort of that?
When the Murray Queen, which is now moored in Loxton.
Yeah.
Was owned by a consortium with Carly Maywell, etc. They built this top line mooring there,
Okay.
which has sat there in disrepair for a lot of years. It was made worse by the floods. And when we eventually operate Canali full time, we want to put in trips to Waikerie more often.
Yeah.
So we've approached, there was rumour about them ripping that mooring out.
Okay.
So we've, Jim Maywall and myself went up and met with them. And with the help of the Cadell Training Centre, the prisoners, the whole thing's going to be reinstated and for our use, and
Wow.
probably the Proud Mary and the Princess, if they go up that way.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if it comes down.
Yeah, very positive move, and lots of Waikerie Council didn't want any funds. They even agreed to reinstate power
Cool.
to the site
Nice.
for us.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when we did pull up, we had a permit to pull up in Waikerie on the way up to Berry on the way back, but on the way back it was a nice, very hot day, and even though we had a permit section of the river,
Mm.
we upset a lot of people that were there picnicking and skiing.
Because I'm used to boats.
Yeah. How dare you?
Excellent, have a win.
Right.
Yeah, it is a win.
Yeah, yeah. That's on council that's supportive.
Yeah,
And so doing that and
Yeah.
not one.
yeah, what we want to do is when we're running is, like, they have two big major events in Waikerie, that's the Rock and Roll Festival and the Australia Day Festival. If we can take passengers on a Friday on the day trip, then run 1 hour cruises over the weekend, and then on the Monday, do the reverse passenger trip.
What is it in river hours?
About 7. Yeah,
To Waikerie.
yeah, from Morgan,
And then-
that includes the lockage at Lock 2.
And then Loxton.
Up to Loxton, that's another full day,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. And nothing else on that one? In that case, would somebody like to move? Kevin? Moving your open. Right, delivered report on, that's on 7.5. Second, Sean? In favour? Come on, carried. Thank you. 7.6. Budget. I promise I don't have, I might have 2 questions, Andy.
Go straight to them, this is a report directly from the accountant, John Howe, who makes his assessments and judgments based on the actual figures in the budget. You know, I even though, you know, this operation is costing council a reasonable amount of money, I think that the coming in under budget deficit is a very good point to be taken from this. When I read through it myself, there was no alarm bells with regard to any individual items that we're involved with. Holistically, I think our budgets are, you know, we're doing reasonably well. Noting that the major expense of our budget is staff wages. We have to pay people to administer this, otherwise we don't have it. Like all of local government services, we pay staff. Recovering staff wages is probably, you know, I would suggest it's an impossible task to cover staff wages on an operation this big. We're not privately run. We you know, we're subject to awards and enterprise agreements at a higher level, possibly than private enterprise. We have to have maximum numbers on our crews, which means bigger rostering, bigger volunteer management processes and things like that. So all in all, I think it's you know, a fairly good balanced report and outcome.
Cool. Anybody?
Through the chair,
Yeah.
to Andy, this is a side issue, I suppose. Is it your intention to run the markets through winter?
Our intentions is to run the markets on the first Sunday of every month.
So through winter?
Yeah.
Crystal?
Yeah, just, because council are sort of going to full cost attribution on everything that we do, so just making sure that we know what the actual costs are, and it's been really, really good. I'm just wondering in regards to, the wages, and I think particularly yours, so I think that's attributed all to Manning. Should that,
No,
it's
no,
not,
it's
it's covered under both?
Yeah, no, there's a separate line from that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so it sort of covers the part.
No,
goes to Manning,
my
part
wages
goes
is
to-
already split.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
all right, because it's considered, so that might be a. good thing to
There's
do.
more work to do in that area. Full cost attribution is essentially the allocation of additional expenses against budget lines to cover IT, finance, directors, and other areas' wages that are generally, you know, office bound. They're very important to us all. It isn't uncommon, but I haven't been involved with that process, and I haven't been informed what additional expenditure that will be allocated to our section. But what I would like, and I'll make this point through council, is a full cost attribution isn't just allocated against each little income line, but it's clearly identified what that amount is, because operationally we need to focus on recovering the money from our operation.
Yes. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
And you need to know what that is before you can.
Well,
And that's
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
technique, and we haven't done that before, so it's I think that's why the delay in a lot of things, because we think that which will make it better going forward. I know it probably doesn't seem that way, but I think that it has to,
I-
you know, because then we know exactly where
Yeah.
the.
It seems to me to be bundled at the moment, so
Yeah.
there's things. If we did not have boats and museums, we would still have there would be a duty upon council to have visitor information centres and stuff that serve the tourist industry within the region. And at the moment, they're bundled together. But then there's also full cost attribution is interesting because there are also things that we get from council that aren't in here. Chainsaws, trucks, parking, wood storage. So it's a little bit of a careful what you wish for in terms of where that goes, but I think there has to be an element of unbundling to to work it out.
But there's more and more of those things you just mentioned are now coming online and are being costed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, and the example was, when we were in Berry, we had to get a couple of truckloads of wood taken to Berry. Cause you gotta have wood to come back. Well, I believe that was all costed, all the wages and the trucks and all that to do that trip, so that eventually all comes out of your budget.
Did that come back to you? That was through council
Internally.
No,
So-
internally, but then it appears.
Not costing cents.
It gets costed to our job sections.
Yeah.
My role's to try and make it go to the right number.
Yeah.
Considering you didn't even know you had to pay it the first place.
Oh, no, look, it's very common thing, similar sort of thing. Burnside Council want to donate us wood on a regular basis to get our semis down there to pick it up and back, we pay for that.
Yes, yeah,
And we don't have that budget in our wood cutting budget, so we have to do something about that, either not accept the wood or
yeah.
find the money for it. You can't expect other departments to send 2 staff and 2 trucks and,
No, because they're under the same.
you know,
Mm.
30 years ago, yeah, that's exactly what would have happened, but it can't happen now.
See, the biggest problem, like when we were in Berry, Berry Barmer Council don't own a paddle steamer, so they haven't got a wood yard with a supply up the road
Yeah.
to do the thing looking after Wren.
Yeah.
Ben and Renmark would have been a different option.
But can't you, like here, at a weekend, can't you have a volunteer to drive the council?
Yeah. We can, we just haven't set that up yet,
You know, I mean, like down to Burnside,
not semi-trail.
or just semi-trailer.
Yeah.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, it's just, it's real
See,
heavy.
and then you wouldn't have people at Burnside working on the weekend.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of- Yeah, it's very
Doing
true.
gin and tonic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I think a point about full cost attribution that I want to make for the committee, it's a new term to you, but it's covering the overheads of council. It's not that, those examples of wood loading, they're operational, so we can measure and cost them and it gets charged to the right account. Full cost attributions covers the overheads of council, gets distributed across the budget of council in its key operational areas. So keep in mind that if we did not have a tourism operation, those costs are not a saving to council, they still have to be paid by council and the ratepayers.
Any other questions, thoughts? Has somebody like to?
Just before you do that,
Yep.
with the canal, there's
Income expense.
minus 34.53% saving on expenditure. We haven't got any money, how can we save?
Which line, to give us a line number?
It's about 4 or 5 down from the top.
330, yeah. 345. So Kevin's referring to the fact that there was the Canali expenditure. Yeah, there was some minor lines in the budget for Canali. I've had funds transfer over in the third round for restoration from savings across area. So this really says that the Canali's overspent on the original budget that was allocated against it. That was deliberate. The Ben did not want to allocate further restoration budget for the Canali at the start of the financial year. He wanted to see how the grant rolled out. He wanted to see where we were at. There is some further allocation. So when the next report comes out, there will actually be more budget, and you'll probably find that Canali will be back in the right side.
No. And the other question was, skipper training to come.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand where he came out of that. As something I haven't discussed, or we haven't discussed.
Yeah,
I don't think we've got a problem with our skippers.
No, well, the only training one is Lee Hoisler.
Yeah,
And-
I think he's just got a little bit confused with his level of knowledge of the operation.
Yeah, all right.
Please
It
excuse.
would probably be a good question to ask him, do we get a, can we just explain?
Yeah, Probably something just minor.
So in terms of the Canali's capital expenditure overspend, where does that, is that shown in here? Like if we had to come up with a number that Canali is this much over and above the grant, the original allocations.
Well, you've got because this is a simplified version and we're going to the higher level, there are several numbers under both of those lines.
Right.
So the capital renewal of Canali is sitting under the expenditure line at the moment. So at a current budget of 60,000, year to date actual is 32,000. There's a $17,000 variance in there.
Yep.
So,
And then there's the 28,000 in line 634 down in capital renewal expenditure.
yes, yeah.
So if you added those two together, would that give you a single figure for Canali's?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So my budget's got to cover all of that,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
And
As
then,
you can see, there's no budget in there, and there's $28,000 worth of cost.
yeah. Right, that's why the CEO said that was stop.
We had to pull it out of the water to have a look at the whole, as part of the process, so. With the CEOs.
And then there was a Mayflower capital renewal. There was a note that said it's deferred to next year.
Yeah, there's a budget put in there because until we got an asset management plan for a watercraft, there was always money put in there against each of the boats for capital renewal for this sort of thing. So the Mayflower is coming out of the water in September this year.
Yep.
For her twice in 5 years slipping. So what we'll find is there'll be budget allocated against each vessel in the years that coincide with their anticipated slipping.
Yes. And that all flows back to the capital renewal number in the asset management plans. Yeah. Thank you. And budget, somebody to move, Kirsty, second? Well, no, Kevin was first. All in favour? Thank you. Thanks, folks. No, there shouldn't be. We talked about it, so. 7.7, folks.
Just, it's Andrew, just through the chair.
Sorry.
I've drafted a alternate resolution, if you'd like me to read.
Yes,
Thank you.
I've managed to run it past our governance manager.
Oh, well done.
She
Sitting there quietly.
She agreed it's best for
Doing
council
stuff.
to make it, but you all had conflicts. We've got moves back. One, the report reimbursement of travel expenses for volunteer group members be received. And two, due to the conflict of interest of Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee members, this item be referred to council to make a decision on the proposed reimbursement of travel expenses for volunteer groups.
Everybody, yeah.
So can everybody vote?
You can, because you're not actually making, you're not making a decision,
Yeah.
you're making
Yeah.
decisions to refer, so you're not.
Yeah.
So you're
All
not-
right.
Thank you, Carol. That's
Wonderful, Carol.
wonderful.
Excellent.
We just thought you were sitting there playing
Nah.
solitaire.
So the one question I'd ask the committee to consider, are you comfortable with the content of the report? Because that will be on the basis of the report. Okay. I think we've talked about it
We have
infinitely.
a previous meeting, but they won't, yeah, they're making a decision, so it's,
Okay.
it'll be, yeah.
So are there any other, bearing in mind that this was discussed at some length at the last meeting? Any other comments or questions regarding this?
Oh, the only comment I've got is, I think something like this is needed. If I use an example of, Jim Maywell. He says that it costs him anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 a year to volunteer.
Yes.
And if you can, if the council will give a little bit back, I mean, that keeps the volunteers.
And I think to the point that you're making is that the volunteers see money coming in for all of these
Yeah.
courses and everything, or for every third part that happens. And so it's a little bit back, tokenistic, I think, to cover some real costs. So,
Yeah.
it's just-
It's still something to remember that, like, we'll go back right back to the beginning, working with Andy on this subject that only applies to when the boat is earning money. Yeah, because I think the original concept was there was some Tuesday people that were travelling 20 kilometres and wanted fuel money. So,
Wouldn't mate.
and you travel more than 20.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no. But if the vessel's earning money, it's just a matter of giving a little bit back.
And I think that concept fits well within the sustainability model,
Yeah,
which is the next phase of what we're looking at.
yeah.
Because it's caused me to think, the sustainability also in terms of setting out prices when you, look at, because we had a lot of dialogue at the last meeting about whether it be set as a levy or whatever, which I agreed with the conclusion that we came to that, well, a good idea. But we also have to factor in that, particularly for the overnight trips, particularly if we've got in some cases, a 1-to-1 crew to passenger ratio, the budget that we've got for that passenger, that Derek's allowance to feed that passenger is actually doubled because that passenger is feeding a crew person.
Yep.
There's somewhere in my new livery today. There are costs that have to go back, that have to be passed on to the passengers. But I think ultimately, if volunteers feel they're important, they'll keep on coming back, because if anybody was doing it for the money, they'd be long gone.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and at the same token, the crew member it's not compulsory that they ask for the money.
No, and you think that was the other thought that I had is that when it is actually communicated to the volunteers.
Yeah.
You say, actually, guys, this is a fund, if
Yeah.
you like.
It's there if you need it.
It's there if you need it, and if you don't need it, don't take it, because another volunteer will, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
It's a, how that works in terms of rollover, we can discuss later, but, because it may, I'd see that you've set a budget of 12,000. And which surprised me a bit, because I think when we were chucking it around at the last meeting, we were talking about 5,500. But we don't know how long it's going to last. I think I think we can communicate all of that to volunteers. Because there'll be plenty that will go, no, I don't really need it, but.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Perhaps Carol, could you read your recommendations one more time? Can you do down?
The report reimbursement of travel expenses for volunteer crew members be received. And two, due to the conflict of interest of Mid-Murray Heritage and Maritime Committee members, this item be referred to council to make a decision on the proposed reimbursement of travel expenses for volunteer crew members. I'll move that.
Kirsty, thank you. Would somebody like to second? Les gets one. Hand up. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried.
Thank you, Carol.
Now questions without notice, which can only be relative to things that we have discussed on the agenda today. We're not allowed to spring any scary surprises onto Andy at this point. Are there any questions without notice?
I'll think of one at 3 o'clock. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought of a couple at 4 o'clock this morning. Sorry.
And do keep in mind that, you know, I answer my phone anytime you ring, so if you've got a question that pops up in your head, please give me a call, 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, yeah, I'll answer the phone. I'm one of those stupid people.
I rang Andy yesterday, but I forgot that
I will.
I had Bluetooth headphones, soundproof headphones. And then I rang him and I could hear this voice coming from the greenhouse out of his headphones and couldn't hook to it. Thank you, folks. Next meeting to be held in Morgan. Meeting room, corner of 4th and 8th Streets, Morgan, 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 26th of June.
Now that is a short period leading up to, so, and that's because we deferred April meeting for this meeting.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be another relatively short agenda.
Yeah.
And just some major following questions, but the other thing is that, so you're aware that the draft river structure asset management plan has been endorsed by council for consultation. So that's all our wharves, jetties, boat ramps, anything to do with any river structure. So, yeah, so we'll look at that and commenting,
Well,
please.
well worth a read, even if you don't want to
Yeah,
comment on it.
yeah.
I don't think there'd be a lot of response.
No.
I think it was raised at the council meeting the other day. We've got too many consultations.
Yeah,
with one-
yeah, it's quite.
One here,
Yeah.
that ratepayers are probably very confused.
But does make all about the more.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you, folks. We close the meeting at 11:43.